When I woke up and stayed, there was no one around.
There's a secret skill that I'm going to argue is the hardest thing to master when you're playing drums with a band, especially at first. This isn't about knowing the most songs or being able to play the most fills or solos, or even being able to learn songs fast, though those are certainly important too. This is a skill that's more about your musical social skills. I don't mean how funny you are on stage or whether you pick up the bill at Waffle House on tour. I mean how you lead the band subtly and diffuse potential conflicts with nothing but your playing. You see, there's a huge difference between playing with the track, as I'm doing here,
Going for the eternal flame. I'ma do whatever it takes.
and playing with live musicians, as you see me doing here. Namely, those real musicians are reacting to you, and you can use that to make your performance way better or way worse. And if you haven't gotten your feet wet playing with real musicians, you probably haven't experienced this, which is why I say it's a secret. But anyone who's played a decent amount in real life knows what I'm talking about. Oh, I'm Nate, and people call me the 80/20 drummer. And even though I primarily play on the internet nowadays, I played all kinds of gigs, rehearsals, jam sessions, music school classes, and other live stuff in the past. So I've experienced this firsthand. And today we'll break down what I think is the hardest thing about playing drums with a band, and talk about what you can do about it, all without learning a single new beat or fill. Stay tuned. Folks, today's video is brought to you by me, the 80/20 drummer. I'm going to go over a number of handy tips, and you might be tempted to write it down like notes, like an outline. I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do that. We've done it for you. You can get it for free by clicking the link below the player and telling us where to send it on the next page. That's it. On with the lesson. So, what do I think is the hardest thing about playing with a band? Tempo disputes. Paraphrase question from a student. What if I'm trying to keep the tempo steady and the horn section wants to drag, and then the bass player wants to rush? Real ones know. Sometimes when you play with a band, it's like a dream. There's a consensus about where the beat is, and you can move as one. And sometimes, especially when you're starting out, it's not like that. If you're lucky, there's one member of the band with a different idea of where the pocket is than you. If you're not, there are multiple factions disputing the location of the beat. This can be one of the most frustrating experiences as an up-and-comer, because you spend all this time in the practice room making sure you're squared away, but then when you get in the rehearsal room, it's like somebody's clipping your wings. Like you're trying to run a marathon and someone jumps on your back. And it's not your fault. But there are things you can do to help, without saying a word. Hopefully without saying a word. Before we get there though, let's talk about why consensus is so important. This is Earth, Wind, and Fire. Makes you want to dance, right? That's because everyone is locked into the same pocket. They move like one person. This isn't limited to funk or soul. Listen to Soundgarden. Listen to Tom Petty. Listen to the Black Keys. Michael Jackson. Listen to a small amount of Zeppelin so I don't get a copyright strike. When we think of bands and music we love, they may have different styles, feel, and pockets, but they all have consensus. Whatever feel they're creating, everybody's on the same page. But back to real life. You got a bass player who won't for the love of God stop rushing. Which brings us to the crux of the question. It seems like there are only a few things you can do. You can go with him and let the whole thing rush. You can insist militantly on keeping the pulse where you want it, even if that means the band rips apart at the seams and everybody's in a bad mood. You could mention something to him like, hey, you're rushing, and hope that 1, he's good at taking feedback, and 2, he knows how to fix it even if he wanted to. Or you could suffer silently through the set, then quiet quit or New York quit, and just never play with them again. But obviously, I wouldn't be making this video if I thought those were the only options. When I was learning to play in the thick of things, I thought those were the only options too. But after years of struggling through it and doing the wrong thing, I learned from my mistakes. And that's why I want to share with you a few things that'll hopefully save you a lot of time and a lot of pain. Some lessons from the other side. Ready? Here goes. Lesson 1. Choose your moments. Say you're in that hypothetical band from hell, and a certain member is pushing or pulling on the tempo in such a way that it would cause the entire band to rush or drag if you joined him and went along with it. You can push back or pull back, but certain moments are better than others. Very quick and hopefully not super strained martial arts analogy. If you're ever wrestling with a much bigger human, one thing you learn pretty quickly is not to just push back in the opposite direction at the same time they're pushing you. Great way to waste a whole lot of energy going nowhere. Sound familiar? In grappling, there are moments of transition in which your opponent is reacting to something, and that's when you make your move. Or like in mini golf, when you try to time your ball so it goes in between the windmill blades instead of analogously in music. In every tune, there are moments when your fellow musicians aren't pulling as hard on the time. And it's in those moments that you want to make your move. Just a few examples. During the last 2 beats of a fill into the chorus.
So come and slide to the left side.
During a pause, such as after coming out of a chorus.
When I woke up,
Or during any change between sections. Like the breakdown in Stevie Wonder's I Wish. Bass playing 8th notes through most of the song, then you hit this spot, where all of a sudden the rhythm section lays out, and it's just drums and vocals for 2 bars. Perfect moment to make your move. But what does your move look like? Let's move on to Lesson 2. Choose what you want to play based on where you want to influence the time. So let's say you arrive at a spot to make a little tug on the time, like shifting your weight to the opposite shoulder so you can hike up your t-shirt in bed. You still don't want to play something unmusical, or something that obviously speeds up or slows down. The goal is to influence the tempo in a way that won't split the band down the middle. Hopefully in a way the audience won't even notice. Luckily, sometimes you can do that just by choosing what you play, because certain rhythms have a natural tendency to rush or drag, so you can hide your pushing or pulling within them. Let's take that breakdown from I Wish again. So you want to put the brakes on the tempo a little. One thing that works great for that is downbeats and quarter notes. Depending on the arrangement, if I were trying to influence something to stay slow, or slow down slightly, I might play something like this. On the other hand, know what tends to rush like crazy? Offbeats of 2 and 4. Every horn player in high school band learned not to rush those. So if I were trying to influence the tempo to go up a little or stay up, I'd avoid quarter notes and try to play something that emphasized these rhythms. Video with way more info on all these little time tendencies here, in case you're interested. Let's continue with examples of lesson 2, because this is kind of the meat and potatoes. Let's say it's a song that has a break before the chorus. Like, insert name a song I might be playing here. This same principle applies. If I'm trying to tamp down an overzealous player and assert gently that the tempo should not rise, I'll likely play something quarter note and downbeat oriented. If I'm trying to signal momentum to the band and make sure the tempo doesn't drop, I'd probably play something more offbeat oriented like this. Once you see it, you start to see it everywhere, which is why, lesson 3, you can influence the tempo even within the beat. Even while you're in the middle of a verse or a chorus, you can sometimes exert subtle influence over the tempo without obviously starting a tug of war. If you want to influence something to have more momentum, you can still add offbeat orientation to the beat, with the advantage that this is a part of the beat other rhythm section players probably won't be playing in. So it's a micro moment for you to do a little pull. Likewise, if you want to keep things anchored, downbeat quarter note oriented parts can help. To take this still further, sometimes you can keep the tempo where you want it without even pushing or pulling, but just by being clear and assertive. That does not mean playing louder. It means placing your beat consistently and creating a matrix with your pocket that has a magnetic pole. I have a theory that weaker players in a band will instinctively look for someone to follow. Not always, but a lot of the time. And the part of the reason less experienced drummers struggle keeping the band together, even if their personal time is good, is that they don't play assertively or confidently enough to be that magnetic pole. So those are some of the things you can do to influence where the tempo goes. Now let's talk about a few things you don't want to do. Don't number 1. Don't be an asshole. So one thing that's tempting to do if you're in a situation where one member of a band is playing tug of war with you is some version of the following. direct eye contact with a mean facial expression, maintaining that eye contact while playing tug-of-war with the drum beat, or laying out entirely and/or body language that exhibits your frustration.
What am I supposed to do, bro? What am I supposed to do?
I probably don't have to tell you this, but there is almost no situation in which that will make things better. Usually, the person doesn't even know they're rushing or dragging, and making them stressed, angry, and possibly afraid of you will not make this better. Let alone that you'll possibly never get called again for this gig. Fine, but let alone that word travels, and you're probably hurting your chances to work with friends of this group. Let alone you're ingraining a bad habit. So many no. The vast majority of true pros are almost unrelentingly positive. Don't think of your bandmates as adversaries. If someone isn't carrying their weight, think of them as waiting for someone to benevolently take charge and show them which direction to go. Finally! Don't number 2. Don't forget this is an opportunity. There's a cliche in music circles, and it's true. Always try to play with people better than you. Very good advice. You'll learn valuable lessons, etc. Except sometimes you're the better player, and you get to be that player for someone else. One mark of good players is they can also make weaker players sound better. They can bring the level of a band up. So 2 reasons you should relish the opportunity to do that. First, because you get to practice that skill. Maybe your time or timing in the practice room is right on the money, but occasionally playing with weaker musicians is an opportunity to practice the skill of using that great time to lead and gently influence a band. Finally, think of it almost like giving back. I'm not saying that in a condescending way, but for every player who plays with somebody better than they are, somebody needs to be the better player. So yeah, give back and all. But what if somebody's just aloof, checked out, you do everything you can, but they're still bringing the vibe down, and it takes all your patience just to be nice, and you're just drained after the gig? Hey, at least you know it's not you, so don't internalize it. Smile on the bandstand, don't let any of your frustration show through, quietly get the contact info of everybody in the band, including the offender if that'll avoid awkwardness, then make a polite excuse for why you're not available to play with them ever again. And optional, invite some of the non-offending members over to your place or rehearsal studio to play. Then poach them.
And that's how you get the gig.
Anyway, did we do a thing, you guys? Hope you enjoyed this one. It's a slightly different type of topic than I usually delve into, but my student inspired me with a question. Anyway, as you probably saw, there were a ton of different topics and points nested underneath topics, which sounds to me like an outline. If you're thinking you need to make that yourself, you don't. We've made it for you. You can get it by clicking the link below the player and telling us where to send it on the next page. Dudes, it's been real. Always enjoy these. See you again real soon in another lesson of the week.